Congress is set to deliver the articles of impeachment to the Senate by the end of the week, but is there anything Democrats should be doing to stop Republicans from dismissing it so quickly? Joining us now live via satellite, please welcome House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff. So good morning, Speaker. So Speaker Pelosi is now saying that y'all are going to be moving forward, sending these articles of impeachment over to the Senate. Took a while, maybe, and Mitch McConnell hasn't really changed his mind on anything. So what are you all going to do that's different? And do you anticipate him changing his mind, or are you just doing what y'all do and he'll figure it out?
Well, I don't anticipate that Mitch McConnell is going to change his mind, but what I am hoping is that the public pressure to have a fair trial will mean that these moderate Republican members of the Senate will insist on hearing from people like John Bolton and Mick Mulvaney and others who have first information about the president's effort to shake down a foreign leader to help him cheat in an election. If we had merely rushed the articles over there and given McConnell the chance to sweep it under the rug before the country could be informed about the kind of non-trial he wanted to have, I think it might have led to a different result. At least we have the prospect now of holding senators accountable and insisting on a trial with witnesses. If McConnell succeeds in dismissing this case without witnesses, it will be the first impeachment case, not just involving a president, but involving anyone in the nation's history in which a trial went forward without witnesses.
Hello, Congressman Schiff. It's your best friend, Meghan McCain.
Hi, Meghan.
Hello. Ethics aside, impeachment is a deeply political process. And given the intense divide over the issue and the current standoff that you guys are having, do you think, just purely political, was this a good political move for Democrats? And is there any indication that this has damaged President Trump, because poll numbers say that it hasn't?
Well, you know, I think if you're going to look at the poll numbers, what you'll see over the last 3 months is the country moving from a majority of Americans believing that we shouldn't even have an impeachment investigation to overwhelming support for the investigation, and a majority, although a narrow majority of Americans, saying that the Senate should convict and remove the president from office. So that's been a pretty substantial change. In terms of what impact it will have in November, I really can't say. That's not a question, frankly, I've been asking myself, because I don't think that's my role. I think we in the House had to determine, is this the right thing to do? Is this the constitutionally required thing to do? And what convinced me, Meghan, and you may recall I was not eager to go down the road to impeachment, is when the president committed this latest and most egregious misconduct, the shakedown of the Ukrainian president, withheld military support to an ally at war, and was on the phone literally the day after Bob Mueller testified, the day after the president believed he had escaped accountability for the first foreign interference to help his election. He was back at it again. That told me that he believes he is above the law, unaccountable, and we needed to move forward. Even if the Senate won't do their constitutional duty, we in the House need to do ours.
Yeah, I mean, I hear your side of the argument, but President Clinton's impeachment trial lasted only a month. And if that's the case, Senate Democrats who are running for president in 2020 are all going to be holed up on the Hill instead of campaigning well into the first two primaries. So say what you will about the Constitution and duty, this will hurt Democrats politically. Do you disagree?
Well, look, I think if senators are doing their job, if they are being impartial jurors, if they are doing their duty under the Constitution, that ought to inure to their benefit. I've always felt that the best campaign was simply doing a good job, and I don't think voters are going to hold it against senators for taking the impeachment of a president of the United States seriously. So I don't think it should be an impediment to them. But more important, I don't think it's a question of say what you will about the Constitution. I think it is our duty to uphold the Constitution. And if we allow a president to behave like this, if we allow a president, this president or any other, to seek foreign help, to coerce foreign help in a U.S. election, if we let a president obstruct any investigation into their own wrongdoing, that is going to have enormous repercussions. We're going to have to expect a far greater degree of corruption and malfeasance, not only with this president, but any other in the future. So there's a lot at stake here, and if it means that senators are off the campaign trail for a couple more weeks, I think it's worth the trade.
Okay. All right. Hi, this is Joy Behar speaking right now. So the good news is 71% of Americans want to hear from witnesses at the Senate trial. They really do. But I have a question. If that doesn't happen, how seriously are you considering calling new witnesses like Bolton in the House? You guys never issued a subpoena for Bolton because he said he'd fight it. Will you issue one now? He sounds like he's interested in coming by and testifying. What are you going to do?
We are considering whether to subpoena him in the House. If we're approaching this rationally, though, the senators will be the triers of fact. They should hear from the witness firsthand. It makes little sense to have the House depose John Bolton and then submit that deposition to the Senate. The Senate ought to hear from him quite directly. I also have to say that I'm skeptical that Mr. Bolton will appear before the House. He's refused to in the past. He's only said he will appear before a Senate subpoena. And yes, we could expose that there's no constitutional or legal basis to distinguish between a House and Senate subpoena. But our goal is not to make John Bolton look bad or expose the hypocrisy of that position. Our goal is to have a fair trial in the Senate, to let the senators evaluate the evidence. And unless the senators are prepared to say there's no factual issue to contest, we fully accept the House has made the case that the president did withhold aid, did withhold this White House meeting, did try to extort the Ukrainian leader to help him cheat in the election. Unless they're willing to say that there's no factual dispute, the senators need to hear from these additional witnesses. There's really no case to be made against it. And one final point, and this is often neglected, the documents may be every bit as important. The president has refused to provide a single document in the investigation. We've never had this kind of a wholesale obstruction of Congress. Those documents may be very telling and undoubtedly very damning because the ones that have come out most recently once again reveal in incriminating fashion the president's misconduct. So those documents need to be produced as well.
Congressman Abby Huntsman here. Thank you for joining us. I actually do have a question on the witnesses that we've been talking about. Do you worry that if you open the door to witnesses like John Bolton, that Republicans, we're talking about a fair trial, Republicans, they're going to call in the Bidens, even you, to testify? Trump re-upped his calls for you and for Speaker Nancy Pelosi over the weekend. He was tweeting all about that. Joe Biden has said that he would not testify. Then he said he would testify. Would you, if asked, be willing to testify if you were subpoenaed?
Look, I'm not a fact witness, so other than mollifying the president, I'm not sure why the Senate would call me or Nancy Pelosi as a witness.
But if it is a fair trial, though, you could very well see the case where the Bidens would have to be there.
Yes. You
think that is a good thing politically? You think that's a good thing for impeachment as a whole?
I think what the senators would have to evaluate is, do the Bidens have any relevant testimony? And I think the answer is that they don't. What is at issue here is whether the president withheld military aid, withheld official acts like a White House meeting in order to coerce a country to announce investigations, not even conduct them, but just announce them to help smear his opponent. And there's not much light that Joe Biden or Hunter Biden can shed on the president's conduct. So, yes, the senators...
Then why not have them show up and just say, if you have nothing to hide, then come out there and tell the American people that? Because they want to hear both sides of it.
It would convert the Senate trial into the same kind of a sham proceeding that the president sought to have Ukraine undertake. There's been no factual basis for these allegations against Joe Biden, no factual basis for the allegation that Ukraine, not Russia, interfered in the 2016 election. That is a Russian propaganda talking point. And to ask the Senate do these investigations that the president fraudulently sought to get Ukraine to conduct would merely turn the Senate trial on its head. Now, that's something the president would love, but that's not a fair trial. That's a sham trial. And so I think what the senators ought to do is they should take their oath to be impartial seriously and make this a serious and fair trial, fair to the president, yes, but also fair to the American people.
Adam Schiff, you're going to stick around. We're going to talk a little bit more when we come back.
Thank you.